Hey guys, tonight we drift gently across a starlit ocean to an island where the breeze smells like salt and crushed pandanus, and the water glows with moonlight. You're barefoot on warm sand, watching waves roll in with a rhythm older than memory. Just ahead, a group of elders sits cross-legged, murmuring quietly as they watch the moon's reflection tremble across the shallows. You're here to learn something ancient, something built, not just with hands, but with patience, spirit, and sea sense, the gentle, exacting art of canoe building in ancient Polynesia. Of course, you probably won't survive this if you try it. Solo. Between coral gashes, unpredictable currents, and the occasional angry reef spirit, this isn't your local lake adventure. But don't worry, you're not going anywhere. It's not really. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far we drift together. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin your apprenticeship, not with tools, but with silence. In Polynesian tradition, building a canoe starts not in the forest or the workshop, but with watching the sea. You sit on the soft sand with your knees pulled up, eyes fixed on the lagoon. The elders are quiet, but their gazes shift, constantly tracking tides. Listening to the wind, observing where sea foam collects, and where birds touch down, you learn that the canoe must be in harmony with the ocean's moods. Before selecting a single log, a builder needs to understand which side of the island is waking, which currents feed into which channels, and what kind of hull will suit the voyages. Ahead, is it a short fishing trip to a nearby reef, or a long, star-guided crossing to a distant atoll? Different canoes for different purposes. Trust me. You do not want to paddle a fishing canoe into open ocean unless you enjoy hallucinating dehydrated conversations with sea cucumbers at night. Villagers tell stories around smoky hearth staleys, of canoes so finely built they slice the sea without leaving a wake, and of others that bucked their riders and swam home alone. You laugh nervously, but nobody else does. They all know of Va Mona Deep Sea, Canoes and Wakatawa, war, canoes. The vocabulary is wide and rich, much like the waters they navigate by day. You're learning to listen to the wind in the palm leaves and watch how crabs burrow before a storm. These are not metaphors, they're tools. Before GPS, Polynesians developed one of the most sophisticated non-written navigational cultures on Earth. Their understanding of wind, wave, and wood begins not with cutting down trees, but with reading every natural sign around them. Historians still argue whether the earliest Polynesians intentionally set out to discover new lands or were simply blown off course. But the truth, sitting here in this humid dusk with your ears full of wave rush and your skin salted by breeze, is that it probably didn't matter, because they were always prepared to build, rebuild, and adapt. You wake early, always to the smell of earth and smoke, and spend mornings watching elders sketch canoe shapes in the sand with sticks. They trace outlines that resemble sleek fish or long leaves, often correcting your guesses with amused snorts. One design they call the split banana, which you think is a joke, till you see a real one slicing through the bay later. That day, its twin holes shimmering in the sun. At night, you lie under a roof of woven fronds, listening to pigs grunt in the distance, and fireflies flicker just outside the hut. One elder tells you the wind has a name. It's multiple names. In fact, teach one for a different direction, speed or mood. There's Amukwa, the ancestral breeze, which whispers just before dawn, and Tualoa, the crosswind that blows when ancestors are displeased. You quietly hope you don't annoy any ancestors this week. A quirky piece of knowledge. You'd find out that some Polynesians believed that the perfect canoe design was whispered in dreams. Builders would sleep beside logs, listening. For spiritual instruction, if no dreams came, well, maybe the log just wasn't ready yet. Talk about waiting for inspiration, your hands are still soft. Your arms ache just from hauling coconuts. But you're slowly being inducted into the mindset of a canoe builder, one who doesn't measure time in hours or meters, but in tides. winds, and wood that sings when you tap it. And somewhere between the mosquito bites and the ocean spray, you realize that the canoe isn't just a vessel. It's a story, a memory of trees and tides, of hands and heritage, of journeys taken and lands discovered. It's not built for the ocean. It's built with the ocean. So you lie back on the sand one last time before the tree hunt begins. Lagoon glows faintly beneath a rising moon, and behind you, someone is already singing a soft carving song. You don't know the words, but you understand the rhythm. You wake before the sun, nudged gently by the warm, sticky air, and the rooster who apparently has zero respect for your dreams. Today's the day, tree day. You sling a woven palm pack over your shoulder, mostly filled with taro cakes and fermented breadfruit, and follow the elders inland, away from the sea's lullaby and into the dense, humming jungle. Here's the thing. You don't just cut down any tree. That would be like trying to build a violin from driftwood. The canoe must come from a tree that's strong, seasoned, and spiritually compatible. Yes, compatible. Some trees are just moody. Others are helpful. Some are said too. Remember past lives. Nobody wants a canoe with abandonment issues. You trail behind a tattooed elder named Packy, who taps trees with a knuckle and listens, as if each trunk were humming a secret tune. You pass breadfruit trees with thick, smooth bark and towering koa, with their reddish wood glowing faintly, even in the dappled forest light. He pauses by one, then circles it slowly, doesn't say a word. Just lays a hand on the trunk, whispers something, and keeps walking. You whisper too because somehow this all feels sacred, like entering a temple that's alive and watching. The jungle is buzzing with cicadas and mystery. The perfect canoe tree is tall and straight, with a slight taper and no visible rot. But more than that, it must feel right. The elders talk about mana, a spiritual force that lives in people, places, and yes, in trees. A canoe built from a tree without mana might float fine, but it will lack strength when the sea turns cruel. The sea always turns cruel. Eventually, now here's your mainstream historical fact for the night. In many Polynesian societies, especially Hawaii and Samoa, the tree chosen for a canoe was often a koa or breadfruit tree. Depending on the island's ecosystem, koa was prized for its strength and flexibility. Breadfruit was lighter and easier to shape. But both were sacred. The felling of such trees was often overseen by spiritual leaders or kahuna, who performed chants and offerings to ensure the spirits were properly respected. Which brings us to the next crucial step or mission, C. Even if a tree looks perfect, even if it practically begs to be carved into a sleek ocean-faring beauty, you still can't touch it until the proper rituals are performed. Not unless you're cool with spirit-induced capsizing or sudden outbreaks of canoe termites. Packy finally stops at a tall koa tree with smooth bark and a crown that dances just a little differently in the wind. The rest of the group gathers around. One elder pulls a folded banana leaf from her belt and opens it to reveal a small, fragrant bundle of kava root, tea leaves, and crushed red hibiscus. She hums a sound more breath than melody and begins the offering chant. You kneel in the ferns, the smell of damp earth and crushed bark filling your nose. The chant rolls over you like warm rain, full of names you don't recognize, ancestors. Spirits of the forest, maybe even the soul of the tree itself. She places the bundle at the tree's base, along with a few coins made from shell and bone. It's a small, fragrant bribe, or maybe a thank you in advance. Here's a quirky tidbit for your collection. In some traditions, if the tree creaked or dropped a leaf during the ritual, it was considered a sign of acceptance. If a bird pooped on you during the chant, that was either very bad luck or a reminder that nature has a sense of humor. Historians still argue whether these rituals were strictly religious, or if they doubled as a way to teach ecological respect. Was this about gods, or about managing a forest sustainably? Maybe both. The lines blur easily when the entire world around you is alive with meaning after the chant. The group eats together beneath the chosen tree because even sacred work requires snacks. Someone passes you a wrapped bundle of roasted taro. You eat with sticky fingers and sore legs, but there's a new kind of hush in the air. The tree has been marked, claimed by tradition. Tomorrow, the tools will come out. Not today. The sun shifts above, casting golden fingers through the canopy. You hear the forest breathe. For a moment, you wonder if the tree is dreaming. Sensing its future as a voyager of the sea, someone burps loudly, ruining the moment. Packy swats the offender with a frond, and everyone laughs. You hike back toward the village with a lighter step. This is no longer a tree. Its bark will be smoothed under your hands. Its sap will stick to your skin. Its wood will carry you over unknown waters. And, if the elders are right, its spirit might just carry a piece of you in return. As the jungle thins and the ocean reappears, you glance back once more. The tree stands quiet, regal, waiting. Tomorrow, the axe comes. But tonight, you rest. You're back at the tree, this time with fewer snacks and a lot more tension in your shoulders. The morning sun filters through the canopy, and the forest feels ... different. Quieter, as if even the birds are holding their breath. Today is the... Fill in but hold your stone adze for a second, not so fast. You don't just start chopping away at the sacred tree with your best lumberjack cosplay. There's a very specific sequence to this, and skipping it might just get you smacked by a gust of wind strong enough to knock your canoe plans into next week. First up, the proper prayers. You kneel again, this time joined by a kahuna, or spiritual expert, whose job today is basically part priest, part carpenter, and part forest psychologist. He wears a garland of fragrant leaves, and he carries a staff carved with notches each, one said to represent a voyage his ancestors survived. Let's just say it's a very notched stick. He chants again, this time in a low, slow tone that sounds like the creaking of the tree itself. The words rise and fall with the rhythm of your breath. As he finishes, he dips his fingers into a small wooden bowl filled with coconut water and ginger, then flicks droplets onto the trunk. You're not entirely sure if it's a blessing or a polite warning, then the first cut, but here's the catch. It's not made by you or Packy or any of the eager young carvers. The first cut is made by the kahuna, his blade. It bites into the bark with a soft thunk, and just like that, the tree has begun its transformation from forest elder to ocean traveler. Only. Then do the others join in. You take your turn, gripping your own adze a little clumsily if we're being honest, and swing. It hits off center, glancing away. Embarrassing. Packy grunts. You just try again. This time the blade bites true. The wood is dense, fragrant, a mix of sap and memory. And this is where you begin to understand why this process isn't rushed. It's not just hard work, it's delicate work. Stone and shell tools are unforgiving. You can't brute force your way through a koa trunk the way someone might with a modern chainsaw. Instead, it's careful chip after chip, each stroke chosen like a word in a poem. Mainstream historical fact, time ancient Polynesian. Woodworkers often used basalt adzes mounted into wooden handles, bound with braided coconut fiber. These tools were passed down between generations, refined, sharpened, and sometimes even buried with their owners. Some adzes were so finely made that modern archaeologists originally mistook them for ceremonial objects, not everyday tools. But nope, those bad boys saw real action. Hours pass. The sun slants differently through the leaves. You wipe sweat from your brow, and your hands are already stiff from gripping the adze. The tree is groaning faintly now, not in pain, maybe, but in release. You've opened part of it. It's speaking back in wood tone sighs, and then someone breaks out the fermented coconut brew. Yes. This is part of the process. See, the work isn't all labor and ritual. There's camaraderie here, too. As the day goes on, someone begins to sing one of those calandra response tunes that tells the story of a great voyage. Our canoe survived 5 cyclones and 2 grumpy sharks. You clap along, even as your arms feel like cooked taro. Ow. A young kid brings roasted bananas on a palm tray. The kahuna's voice has become quiet, watchful. He nods occasionally, as if listening to something no one else can hear. Now for your quirky tidbit. In some island communities, felling a tree took days, and they'd build temporary shelters right at the base. Builders would sleep near the tree, almost like keeping vigil beside a loved one. If anyone dreamed of falling or drowning during this time, the build was paused until further blessings could be arranged. 8. Dream-based scheduling. Very efficient. Historians still argue whether the extensive rituals were meant to appease gods, or just to make everyone stop and think twice before clear-cutting an island. It's entirely possible the whole system was a mix of ecological wisdom and spiritual storytelling. Either way, you begin to feel the weight of it. It's not just the log, but the responsibility. By late afternoon, the tree begins to lean. Hey, everyone backs away respectfully. A few more well-placed cuts. A group of men with thick arms and quiet mouths takes hold of the trunk with coiled vines. Then, with a final chant-along, rising call that sends birds shrieking from the branches, tree tilts, groans, and falls. Not with a crash, but with a kind of surrender. Leaves flutter upward as if the forest itself exhaled. It's down. And now, the real work begins. You stand over it, heart pounding. There's a hush again. Not sad, not exactly, but solemn. Moment of gratitude. You place your hand on the warm trunk. It's already changing shape in your mind. You see it rising from the sand as a sleek hull, catching sun and salt spray, carrying stories across the blue vastness. Tomorrow, you'll begin carving the hollow. But tonight, the log rests. And so do you. The log lies in a clearing now, stripped of branches and resting on woven mats to keep it off the damp ground. You're perched nearby on a smooth rock, your legs sore, and your palms beginning to develop the kinds of calluses that make handshakes. Awkward. The air smells like crushed leaves, warm sap, and wood smoke drifting from a distant cooking fire. This is the quiet phase, the slow coaxing of a canoe. From a tree's sleeping form, today's task, begin hollowing the hull. You're not using chainsaws, obviously. Instead, you're handed a stone adze sharpened to a fine edge and mounted. At a slight angle on a curved handle, it's surprisingly light, which is great until you realize that you'll be swinging it thousands of times. Your first dozen blows glance off clumsily, drawing laughter from a boy who can't be more than 12. He's already carved his own miniature canoe and is clearly judging you with every splinter you fail to make. Patience, they say. Let the blade do the work. The elders work quietly, their hands moving with practiced rhythm. Thunk, thunked, shave. Thunk, thunk, shave. Each motion chips away more than just wood. It carves time. The forest around you sings softly with insects and birds and the occasional grunt of someone smacking a thumb. There's a peacefulness here. Or maybe it's just the early stages of exhaustion. Mainstream historical fact for the night. Polynesian. Canoe builders used fire as a companion to carving. Once the rough hollow was shaped, they often lit small controlled fires in the center of the log to soften and char the inner wood. The charred sections were then scraped away with stone or shell tools, making it easier to shape a deep, curved hull without cutting too deep. Its ancient woodworking plus fire management to skills your modern camping resume is sorely lacking. As evening rolls in, they bring out the firestones. A ring of smooth rocks is arranged inside the hollow, and a slow fire is built. Not raging flames, just a glowing, licking heat that softens the wood from within. You fan the coals carefully, mindful not to scorch the edges. Packy hands you a shell scoop to ladle water around the rim to protect it from splitting. A sweet, woody scent fills the air. The canoe smells like roasted earth and distant voyages. It's hard not to feel like you're participating in something. Mythic part sculpture, part summoning. Here's your quirky fact. Some legends say that fire used in canoe building had to come from a clean flame, meaning it was started from scratch, not taken from an everyday cooking fire. In some villages, they used sunstone or polished shell to reflect sunlight onto dry coconut fibers and spark a flame blessed by the heavens. So yeah, your disposable lighter wouldn't cut it. After several hours of fire and scraping, the hollow begins to deepen. You're told not to make it too thin. This isn't a speedboat. A good canoe needs both balance and resilience. It's light and it skims, but cracks in rough water. Too heavy and it drags. Like most good things in life, it needs to sit somewhere. In the middle, historians still argue whether these hollowing techniques were developed independently on each island or passed down from a central seafaring culture. Was there a single Proto-Polynesian hub that spread its craftsmanship? Or did islanders just arrive at similar techniques by wrestling with the same stubborn trees? Either way, the knowledge has rippled outward for centuries, surviving despite colonial disruptions and the literal erosion of coastlines. By now, your hands are coated in charcoal and sticky resin. Your hair smells faintly like smoke. A small cut on your thumb throbs earned by slipping while trying to show off. Classic. Someone offers you fermented coconut water in a half shell. You sip. It tastes like fizzy sadness, but you're too tired to care. As night falls, you and the others sit around the log now halfway to canoehood. It's long, darkened with soot, still rough but clearly transforming. Packy traces the curve with a calloused hand. It remembers the sea already, he mutters, almost to himself. You lie back on the mats, watching palm fronds sway overhead. Someone plays a bamboo flute nearby. Its soft, breathy notes blend with the distant surf. You wonder how many times. This ritual has happened before. How many generations have sat exactly where you are, carving futures out of trees? You feel connected, in a sleepy, atchy kind of way, to all of them. Tomorrow, you'll start smoothing the outer hull. But for tonight, your only job is to rest beside the half-born canoe as it cools from its first taste of fire. Word count, 1096. You wake to the sound of scraping, slow, rhythmic, strangely soothing. Someone's already working, hunched over the canoe hull like a cat sharpening its claws. A rooster crows. Somewhere nearby, children giggle as they chase each other between pandanus trees, and the air smells faintly of overripe mangoes and the wood smoke left from last night's fire hollowing. It's smoothing day now that the canoe's general shape has emerged. It's time to refine it to coax sleekness from rough grain, curve from chaos. You run your hand along the hull. It's warm, still carrying the memory of yesterday's coals. The interior is charred black and uneven, full of ridges and scrape marks. But the outer shell is ready for its transformation. You start with the interior. Boy hands you a length of stingray hide, rough as a cat's tongue and twice as determined. He demonstrates how to grip it taut between your palms and rub in long strokes along the inside. You mimic him, and your palms immediately regret it. It's like exfoliating with a cheese grater. But bit by bit, the burnished surface begins to gleam. You sand, wipe, then sand again. Coconut husk fibers are brought out to buff the wood, followed by a layer of tree resin rubbed on with banana. Leaves to seal the grain. Your arms go numb. Your shoulders hum. This is canoe building cardio. Nobody warned you. Mainstream historical fact for the day. Polynesian canoe builders didn't just shape the hull by eye. They used flexible sticks or cords as guides for symmetry and passed down proportions orally. A well-balanced hull was essential for maintaining directional stability. In Hawaii, skilled canoe makers known as klewa were highly respected, and canoe design was considered both science and sacred practice. They knew how to balance weight, length, curvature, and waterline displacement without ever touching a blueprint. You begin to appreciate how elegant this process really is. There are no rulers here, jaws, hands, eyes, and a deep memory of form passed from generation to generation. The line of the canoe is meant to echo nature, the arc of a wave, the spine of a fish, the shape of a crescent moon. A fringe benefit of smoothing day, you're allowed to gossip. One of the aunties working beside you snorts and says your sanding face looks like you swallowed a hot pebble. You learn that Packy once tipped a canoe during a ceremony because he sneezed while blessing it, and you overhear a heated argument over whether coconut oil or crushed sea urchin paste makes for better waterproofing. Spoiler, neither side backs down. Here's your quirky fact. In some Polynesian traditions, canoe builders left small, deliberate imperfections in the hull, teeny nicks or asymmetries. Why? To give the spirits somewhere to escape. Perfectly. Sealed canoe, they believed, could trap energy, and not all energy plays nice. So that little wobble near the stern. Totally intentional. Definitely not from your bad sanding technique. Historians still argue. Whether these customs stem from spiritual beliefs or practical superstition, did ancient builders really worry about ghost entrapment? Or was it a sneaky way to explain away minor errors while maintaining spiritual prestige? The line between reverence and rationalization can get pretty blurry in boat building. You're finally handed a shark tooth, bound with senet-braided coconut fiber and told to use it like trade. A scraper. It cuts the wood in satisfying curls, each one spiraling away like a shaving of cinnamon. You fall into a rhythm, your movements slow and meditative. The wood is talking, now singing in a low, grainy hum. You begin to recognize its voice. And, more importantly, it begins to recognize yours. At midday, everyone stops. No one says why. They just sit in silence for a few minutes, listening to the wind move through the trees. Someone mutters a thank you under their breath. You realize it's a moment of gratitude, not a formal ritual, just a quiet pause to respect the canoe's slow emergence. You breathe in, and it feels earned. By late afternoon, the hull is smooth. It's not shiny or finished, but sleek enough to touch without splinters. You run your hand along the curve and feel the difference like petting a stone that's been rolled by the sea for centuries. Someone taps you on the shoulder and points to the end of the hull. There's a chip. It's not deep, but definitely not supposed to be there. You wince. Did you do that? Packy shrugs and pulls out a ball of softened tree bark. He mashes it into the dent, rubs it flat, and then binds the area with a strip of pandanus. Soaked in fish glue. It's like ancient wood filler. And just like that, crisis averted. The sun begins to dip. As shadows lengthen, you and the others drag the hull back toward the beach, inch by inch on rollers made from smooth logs. It creaks occasionally, but not unhappily. It's getting closer to the sea now. You can tell it knows. Tonight you lie. Beside it again, this time on the sand, someone builds a fire. A dog curls up at your feet. The moon rises, silver and vast, and you stare at the stars reflected in the hull's gentle curves. The canoe is still just a shell, but it's breathing. Now, and maybe, just maybe, it's starting to dream. You're ankle-deep in warm sand now, standing beside the smooth hull under the blazing sun. The ocean is just a short stroll away, teasing you with its glimmering surface. But before your canoe meets the waves, it needs it's time to build the outrigger. Now, if this were a Hollywood movie, you'd probably just slap on some bamboo and sail into a montage. But this is ancient Polynesia, and outriggers are serious business. Without one, you're sleek, freshly carved. Canoe would tip faster than a drunk tourist on a paddleboard. It's not an accessory, it's survival. The elders lead you to a smaller tree often, a straight, sturdy wood like how, or breadfruit, something flexible, strong, and light. This won't be a single piece, but a careful assembly of float booms and lashings. You're about to enter the world of pre-modern tension engineering, where coconut fiber holds together not just wood and flotation, but fate. Mainstream historical fact for today. Polynesian outrigger canoes used lashing techniques, so precise and resilient that some have lasted for decades without a single nail or modern fastener. Lashings were made from senet-braided strands of coconut husk, pounded, soaked, dried, and twisted with near-religious attention to consistency. In fact, some islands had full-time fiber specialists who prepared cordage and canoe builders. Wouldn't even start construction until their preferred lashers were available. You're handed a coil of senet. It's surprisingly rough, like a rope made of ancient hair and salt. Packy demonstrates how to lash. A figure-8 wrap, a tight pull, a wet knot. It's not brute strength, it's rhythm and pressure. The fibers shrink as they dry, pulling tighter, almost like they want the canoe to hold together. You repeat the motion. Your first lash is generously a mess. The second is slightly better. By the third, you're starting to find the groove. There's something oddly satisfying about it, like weaving. But with higher stakes and splinters, here's your quirky tidbit. Some elders tested the strength of lashings by walking barefoot across them while the canoe was suspended. If the cordage didn't creak or sag under their weight, it was deemed seaworthy. If it did, well, back to braiding. The float itself, the ame, is carved into a gently curved banana shape, designed to ride the surface of the waves and counterbalance the main hull. The boom's called ioka, connected to the canoe like ribs extending. From a spine, the whole structure looks fragile at first glance, like a wooden insect. But once lashed together, it moves as one, flexing with the ocean's motion. It's absorbing shock, resisting capsize. Historians still argue whether outrigger canoes originated in island Southeast Asia or were a Polynesian innovation. Most agree. They're among the oldest forms of advanced boat stabilization ever devised. But how they evolved from double-hulled vessels to single-hulled outriggers is still a matter of academic. Arm-wrestling. Back in the sand, you're adjusting the angle of the ayako, aligning it so the float sits just off the waterline. Too low, and it drags. Too high, and it doesn't stabilize. Packy uses his shadow to check the balance. Another elder nods approvingly. You're getting it. By midday, you're sweating buckets. Someone brings you a coconut with a hole jabbed in the top. You drink it gratefully, even though you strongly suspect this one was chosen for hydration, not taste. It's earthy. With the outriggers lashed and balanced, you move on to the bindings around the hull's seams. Coconut pitch, sticky black, and mildly offensive to the noses applied with a carved spatula made from turtle shell. It seals every joint, knot, and crevice. Your fingers end up covered in the stuff. You're told not to touch your eyes, your hair, or your well. Just don't touch anything until you've scrubbed for an hour. As the sun drops lower, the entire canoe assembly is shifted to face the sea. It now sits with its AMA resting on the sand, curved like a sleeping arm. You step back and admire it. It's not just functional, it's beautiful. The lines are fluid, the proportions balanced. Even the knots seem to hum in harmony with the breeze. And here's where it gets almost poetic. The elders say the outrigger isn't just for balance, it's for companionship. In the water, it becomes your silent partner, always there to catch. You, when you falter, it shifts, rocks, dances with the waves, but never leaves your side. If the hull is your body, the outrigger is your spirit. Walking beside you on the ocean path, that night, you lie beside your canoe again. You've earned your place in its story fibers, burned into your hands, salt on your lips, dreams of curved wood gliding over glassy sea. You fall asleep to the sound of the tide kissing the beach and the gentle creak of your newly lashed ama as it settles into its shape. The canoe is nearly ready. You wake to the soft crackle of a fire and the steady whoosh of palm fronds shifting in the wind. Today smells different, like warm smoke, damp earth, and something sharp and faintly tangy. Tree sap and salt? No one's talking much this morning. There's a focused hum in the air, the kind of silence people carry when they're doing something ancient, something sacred today. You're going to cure the canoe now, before you start picturing herbs in crystal bowls. This isn't some fantasy. Spa treatment for wood. This is about preparing the canoe to live in the harshest environment it'll ever know, son. Salt, water, wind, fish guts, and the occasional overconfident sea turtle. The curing process begins with fire. It's not the big dancing bonfires of celebration, but small, smoky, carefully managed ones. The elders set up troughs of smoldering coconut husk and bark beneath the canoe. They raise it slightly with stones and driftwood so the smoke can drift upward, curling around every plank and lash, sinking into the grain. Your job? Keep the smoke moving. You fan it with a palm leaf, gently, rhythmically. The canoe begins to darken slightly, its wooden skin taking on a soft, grayish sheen. The resin you smeared on the hull yesterday melts and seeps deeper into the seams, filling cracks, hardening as it cools. It's not just waterproofing, it's armor, mainstream historical fact of the day. Polynesian canoe builders often used smoke, curing not only to dry and seal the wood, but to prevent insect damage. Smoke acted as a natural preservative, deterring termites and boring beetles that might weaken the hull. It also gave the canoe a distinct aroma that some navigators said helped them recognize their own vessel even in the dark. You start to notice the scent, the mix of hardwood and char. It's coconut fiber and salt resin. It's oddly comforting, like a forest slowly turning into the sea. You crouch beneath the canoe, watching the tendrils of smoke dance in the filtered light. The shadows here are rich and quiet, and you wonder how many builders over how many centuries have knelt just like this. Breathing in history and exhaling patience. Once the smoke has done its work, the canoe is turned slowly, carefully. You help. Tilt it on its side. Is you're now that you know where to grip and how to balance, and the curing begins again on the underside. More smoke, more fanning, more listening. Listening? Yes, the elders say that a canoe tells you when it's cured. Not in words, obviously, but in sound. A dry, cured hull gives off a certain thunk when tapped a light, clear note that rings slightly. Wet or green wood makes a dull thud. You spend 20 minutes tapping different spots like a sleepy percussionist. Eventually, you hear it. Soft, sure sound. The canoe is speaking back. Here's your quirky tidbit. In some islands, villagers believed that sea spirits would inhabit a canoe that had been properly smoked and oiled. Drawn to the scent and the smoothness, that meant, yes, your canoe might actually become possessed by a friendly ghost. Some navigators even gave the spirit a name, offering it a fish or a drop of kava before each voyage. You're not sure if your canoe has a spirit yet, but you have. Notice that it now seems to reflect the light a little differently, less like wood, more like bone polished by ocean waves. It has presence. After the smoking comes the seawater. That's right, now you soak it. The entire canoe is slowly carried down to the shallows, supported by thick wooden rollers and ropes, guided by hands that have done this many times before. You're one of the rope holders. Heart thumping as the canoe inches closer to the water, there's a low chant. It's not loud or dramatic, but steady, an old song about leaving shore and asking the ocean not to chew you up too quickly. As the canoe touches the water, a few kids squeal and chase small fish darting from under the hull. At the float of the outrigger bobs lightly, testing the tide. You feel something shift in your chest. The canoe is floating. Not sailing, not yet, but hovering between land and sea. Between tree and story, historians still argue. Whether these curing methods were ritual first and practical second or the other way around, some researchers see them as examples of indigenous engineering genius. Others point to the layers of prayer and storytelling that wrap each step in layers of deeper meaning, probably both, like everything else in this process. Spirit and science, smoke and salt. The canoe rests in the shallows for the rest of the day, soaking in brackish tide water, letting the seams settle and the lashings tighten naturally as they absorb the ocean's breath. You sit nearby, watching, occasionally brushing away a crab, occasionally brushing away Pikai's foot when he tries to sneak another fermented coconut into your bag. The sun dips low, and the canoe gleams with that golden hour glow. It looks like it's always belonged here, as if the beach was built around it, not the other way around. You realize something important. The canoe isn't done, but it's ready, and so are you. You're sitting cross-legged in the sand, toes buried, hands stained with smoke and resin. And now it's time to talk about something a little unexpected. Fashion, canoe fashion today. You're adding the final touches, the carvings, the ornamentation, parts that don't just say, "This will float," they say, "This is ours." You see, in Polynesian culture, canoes weren't just tools. They were living vessels of identity, family, and pride. And you're about to carve your canoe's face. First, the prow. It's already elegantly curved. But the elders have gathered around with sharp-edged coral tools and bundles of pigment made from crushed volcanic rock, ochre and charcoal. Packy hands you a small paddle-shaped chisel. "Don't mess this up," he says with a wink. But you can tell he means it. It's just a little. Mainstream historical fact incoming. Polynesian canoes were often adorned with intricate carvings, especially on the prow front and stern. These carvings served multiple purposes they could symbolize: lineage, island of origin, or invoke protection from sea gods. In Mboriwaka, for example, elaborate tauhu prows were carved with spirals and faces representing ancestors. In Hawaii, some canoes were marked with kapu taboo signs, warning that only high-status individuals could board. You press the chisel to the wood. The grain is tight and smooth from curing. Your first stroke is tentative, too shallow. Second, bites deeper. You start to carve a small spiral, a basic motif, echoing the unfurling fern fronds you've seen everywhere. It's not a masterpiece, but it's yours. Others around you carve symbols with practiced hands lines that represent waves. The rising sun, or the story of a great-great-grandfather who got seasick and still beat the enemy fleet. The canoe becomes a living tapestry of memory and myth. Quirky fact time. Some carvers use their own teeth as models for designs on the prow. They believed the canoe should bear their bite, a symbol of protection and ferocity. Basically, it's like engraving your signature in your own smile. You get a little bolder. A wave shape here, a stylized turtle there. One of the elders adds dots in a triangular pattern that represents stars' navigation markers passed down by chant, not chart. You start to see the whole thing not as art, but as a kind of coda language the sea might recognize. Once the carving is done, the painting begins. No latex or enamel here, just natural dyes mixed with coconut oil and sap. You use a palm frond brush to smear red pigment along the upper rim of the hole, where sea spray will lick it clean. A stripe of white ash follows. Someone dots a small black eye shape on either side of the prow. She needs to see where she's going. They say utterly serious. Historians still argue whether these visual elements were mainly decorative, or had secret navigational functions. Were they cultural identifiers, spiritual protections, or mnemonic devices? Possibly all three. There's no instruction manual, only hands and stories. Next come the ahu, the decorations made from feathers, shells, or woven fiber, tied to the bow like offerings. Paki attaches a bundle of red feathers and a string of mother of ove. Discs that jangle softly in the breeze. Yet a tiny pouch of sand from the riverbank where the tree once stood. These are her memories. Someone says that afternoon a pig is roasted. Not for a feast, but for a blessing. The canoe is officially named, and not by committee. The oldest woman in the village steps forward, lays her palm on the prow, and whispers the name into the wood. Only then does she speak it aloud. The name, translated loosely, means ocean's whisper. You feel a lump in your throat. You didn't know a boat could have a soul until now. Here's something you weren't expecting tonight. You'll sleep beside her again, not out of duty, but out of bond. The canoe is no longer a project. It's a relationship. You curl beside it on a mat woven from fresh pandanus, the scent of paint and smoke still lingering in the air. The stars above are dizzying in their clarity, so many that the sky looks more silver than black. Somewhere a night bird calls, low and echoing. You close your eyes, one hand resting lightly on the hull. She's beautiful, and she's waiting. Tomorrow, you sail. The morning is hushed. Like the world knows something big is about to happen and doesn't want to startle it. You wake before the birds. The sky still that indigo color just before dawn breaks. The Canoesian's whisper rests on the sand. Beside you, her hull still slightly cool from the night air, the red feathers on her prow flutter faintly in the breeze. As if she's already stretching toward the sea. Today is the launch. Not just a splash her and hope moment. This is a ritual. A celebration. A collective breath held and then released with salt water and chants. You and the others gather. Some still rubbing sleep from their eyes, some already adorned with garlands of tea leaves and fragrant blossoms. Paki slaps your back hard enough to jolt your spine, but soft enough to mean you're ready. First, the offerings. You follow the group down to the tide line, where a flat stone has been placed and decorated with flower petals, seaweed, and a cracked coconut shell filled with fermented taro. A kahuna steps forward, his voice steady as he chants. The language is old, and you catch only fragments words for safety, ocean, and memory. Mainstream historical fact. Polynesian canoe launches were deeply ceremonial. Many island cultures launching a canoe involve prayers to Tangaroa, god of the sea, food offerings and chants designed to invoke good winds and calm waters. The first voyage was often short, symbolic, a test of balance and spirit alignment before longer journeys were attempted. A bowl of seawater is passed around. and each person dips their fingers in, then touches the canoe. You do the same. Da! Wood feels alive, warmed by the rising sun, smooth from your hands, and humming with the quiet tension of potential. It's not just a boat anymore, it's a promise. Then come the rollers. Everyone gets into position, gripping smoothed logs placed beneath the hull. On the count of 3, the canoe begins to move slowly at first, then more easily as the sand gives way. The outrigger bumps gently along beside it, balanced, loyal. You guide her into the shallows, legs braced against the tugging tide. The water swirls around your knees, cool and full of sound. The canoe floats, lifting slightly as if shrugging off gravity, and then you climb in. It's a strange moment. You've built this thing, touched every part of it, and now you're sitting inside it. The hull rocks gently beneath you. You test your balance, leaning slightly, and the outrigger compensates like a dance partner. Packy climbs in behind you. A younger boy jumps in the front, paddle in hand, full of grin and energy. There's laughter, a few nervous yells. K-Pig rooting around near the driftwood, and then you're off. The first few strokes are cautious. The water hugs the hull, reluctant to let you go. But as your paddling finds rhythm, the canoe straightens and picks up speed. You're gliding. The beach recedes. The cheers from shore fade into the wind. Here's your quirky tidbit. In some Polynesian traditions, the canoe wouldn't be considered born until it had touched deep water. Till then it was like a child still in the womb, formed but not fully alive. Some islands even gave the canoe a second name after its first ocean outing, as if it had revealed its true character only once it tasted the salt. You reach the reef edge, where waves break in rhythmic bursts. The canoe rocks but doesn't falter. Remember to lean gently into the swells. Let the outrigger do its work. Paddling's easier now. You're not fighting the ocean, you're joining it. Historians still argue whether early Polynesian navigation was based more on instinct or intensive training. They say voyagers memorized star maps, wind patterns, the taste of seawater, even the way ocean swells reflected off distant islands. But ask anyone who's paddled a freshly launched canoe, and they'll tell you, it's both science and feel. You listen to the canoe, tells you everything. You paddle a wide arc, circling back toward shore. The canoe responds quickly, the water parting like silk. The first launch isn't meant to go far, just to prove that everything holds, that the lashings tighten as they should, that your balance is true. Back on the beach, people are waving. A conch shell is blown, long and low. You turn toward the sound and feel something shift in your chest. This isn't just pride. It's relief. Joy. Ah, you've taken something from Earth and made it belong to the sea. As you pull the canoe back into the shallows, the elders are already inspecting it, checking lashings, feeling the hull. One leans in and sniffs the prow, not joking. Apparently, cured wood should have a specific scent after seawater. She nods, approving. The rest of the day is a celebration. Food appears from nowhere, banana wrapped. Bundles of smoked fish, sweet purple yam pudding, coconut rice. You're handed a drink. Don't ask what's in it. People dance. Children climb into the canoe while the adults shout warnings you're pretty sure they don't mean. You sit nearby, exhausted and glowing. The ocean stretches beyond the reef, blue and glittering, and the canoe rests in the sand, gleaming in. The sun, she has floated. She has spoken. She is ready to voyage. The celebration fades as twilight spills across the island, painting the sky in shades of lavender and rose. You sit near the waterline, toes digging into cooling sand, the canoe resting beside you like a quiet guardian. The sea is calm, now soft. Waves whispering secrets, only the canoe seems to understand. But tomorrow, the real test begins. You're going on a voyage. Not just a short paddle around the reef, but a real journey across open water. A rite of passage and a tribute to ancestors, who first dared to trust the ocean's vastness. You feel the weight of that history settle like salt on your skin before you can leave. There's preparation, a different kind of building. You pack provisions, dried fish, breadfruit, fresh water, and gourds. You tighten lashings and inspect. Every knot, every carved face, ensuring the canoe is ready for the unpredictability of the open sea. You double-check the outrigger, feeling its reassuring tension. Mainstream historical fact: Polynesian navigators were expert meteorologists, reading the skies and seas like open books. They used knowledge of bird flight patterns, cloud formations, and wave swells to guide their voyages across thousands of miles of open ocean without compasses or charts. Their canoes were designed to be seaworthy in storms, flexible in rough waves, and fast enough to outrun danger. You look over the horizon, where the sun dips behind distant clouds. The sky is a canvas of promise and uncertainty. You know the ocean will test you, just as it tested every generation before. Here's a quirky tidbit. In some islands, before departure, navigators would carry a small bundle of coconut fiber imbued with ashes from the village hearth, symbolize carrying home with them both protection and connection. Losing that bundle at sea was considered a bad omen, so it was often tied securely near the prow or hidden beneath seats. Historians still argue about the extent to which Polynesian voyaging was accidental versus intentional. And was it a series of fortunate driftings or planned, precise exploration? Recent scholarship leans heavily toward intentionality voyagers who memorize star maps and ocean currents, sending canoes purposefully to far-flung islands. But the mystery remains as vast as the ocean itself. Night falls, and the village quiets, except for the steady slap of waves. You lie beneath a sky so thick with stars it feels like you could reach out and touch the Milky Way. The canoe rests. Beside you, a promise waiting to be fulfilled. You close your eyes and listen to the sea, to the wind, to the quiet pulse of the canoe beneath the stars. The journey awaits. Dawn spills quietly over the horizon. Soft pinks and golds filtering through the palms as you steady yourself beside the canoe. The air is cool, salty, filled with the scent of wet sand and the faint rustle of awakening birds. Your fingers tremble. Slightly not from cold, but from the weight of what's to come. Today, you step beyond the reef, beyond the familiar, and into the vastness of the Pacific. You push the canoe gently into the water, the familiar creak of the outrigger, the familiar smell of smoked wood and salt grounds you. Your hands grip the paddle, muscles taut, yet relaxed. The village watches silently. The children's wide eyes filled with hope and awe. Mainstream historical fact: ancient Polynesian voyages could cover hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles, guided by skilled navigators who used the stars, ocean, swells, bird flight, and cloud formations. Their double-hulled and outrigger canoes were marvels of engineering, designed to ride the open ocean with grace and resilience. The canoe rocks under you as you take the first stroke beyond the sheltered lagoon. The ocean opens wide and endless, a shimmering expanse of blues and greens stretching to infinity. The wind whispers encouragement, and the sea cradles the hull as if recognizing its kinship. You feel the rhythm of the paddles sync with your heartbeat, steady, hypnotic pulse. The outrigger bobs alongside, steady and loyal, catching every wave. And tilt. The sky above is a canvas of light, shifting with the sun's ascent. Here's your quirky fact: some Polynesian navigators believe that dolphins and whales were the spirits of their ancestors, guiding and protecting voyagers at sea. Spotting a pod nearby was a good omen, while their absence could mean caution. You scan the horizon, as trained to catch signs: flocks of birds flying low, clouds shaped like distant islands, subtle shifts in wave patterns. The ocean is alive, and you must listen carefully. Historians still argue whether Polynesian voyaging was primarily trial and error or highly skilled craft passed down through generations. Modern experiments like the voyages of the Hakulia have proven that ancient techniques were not only effective but sophisticated navigation systems as ours pass. The sun climbs higher, casting dazzling light across the water.
Ow.
You feel the power of the sea beneath you, both inviting and demanding respect. The canoe responds with grace, carving through waves, steady as a heartbeat. A sudden splash catches your attention: dolphins. They arc and dive playfully alongside the hull there, sleek bodies shimmering. You smile, remembering the old stories. You lean forward, paddle dipping rhythmically, feeling a profound connection to the ancestors who first dared this journey. The ocean is vast, mysterious, and you're part of its endless story now. As the day stretches on, the waves grow more challenging. You adjust your weight, lean into the outrigger's balance, and trust the canoe's design. It's not just a vessel. It's a companion, a guardian forged from tree and spirit. The horizon beckons endless, open and full of promise. The sun begins its slow descent, casting a warm amber glow over the endless water. You've been paddling for hours, the ocean's rhythm settling deep into your bones. The breeze carries salt and stories, and the outrigger hums beneath you like a trusted friend. As evening approaches, you spot a faint silhouette on the horizon island. Your heart quickens. This is why you built the canoe, why you learned the art of shaping wood and lashing fibers. It's a moment of connection with land after the vastness. Mainstream historical fact. Polynesian navigators routinely traveled vast distances, sometimes hundreds of miles, to discover and settle new islands, often guided by the stars, the behavior of birds, and the patterns of waves. These voyages were vital to the spread of Polynesian culture across the Pacific. You prepare to land. The shoreline appears as a soft curve fringed with palms and white sand. The canoe glides toward it with surprising ease, the outrigger steadying your approach. Your hands grip the paddle tightly, muscles straining to counter the shifting waves. Quirky tidbit. In some island cultures, newly arrived voyagers perform ceremonies to honor the spirits of the land, offering coconuts or flowers to the shore. Before setting foot, it was believed the land welcomed the canoe and its crew, acknowledging their journey and granting safe passage. As you step onto the sand, the warmth of the earth beneath your feet feels like a welcome home. The community gathers, curious eyes and warm smiles greeting you. You share stories of the sea, the stars, and the canoe that carried you here. Historians still debate the exact routes and methods of Polynesian exploration, where their voyages were carefully planned or partly accidental, but there's no doubt about the bravery and skill required. Each journey was a blend of science, intuition, and faith. The night falls, stars glittering like the fireflies in the nearby forest. You sit beside your canoe, reflecting on the path that brought you each carved knot and lashing a testament to centuries of knowledge and tradition. You drift into sleep, lulled by the gentle murmur of waves and the steady presence of your vessel, ready for the next chapter of this timeless voyage. You awaken to the gentle rustling of palm leaves and the distant call of seabirds. A new day greeting you on this unfamiliar shore. The air is thick with humidity and the scent of blooming hibiscus, wrapping around you like a warm tropical blanket. Your muscles ache pleasantly from the voyage, and the canoe rests nearby, still gleaming softly under the sun. Today, it's time to learn the art of repair. The ocean is beautiful but unforgiving, and even the sturdiest canoe can suffer wear. You're taught how to inspect every inch of the hull and lashings for signs of stress-teeny cracks, loosened fibers, or splinters. Da-da-da-da. The tools are simple. Shells sharpened to a fine edge, coconut husk brushes, and pots of natural resin. Mainstream. Historical fact. Polynesian canoe builders carried with them knowledge of maintenance techniques that ensured their vessels could last decades. With periodic repairs done at sea or upon arrival, resin made from trees like the ohia was often used as a waterproof sealant, and lashings could be tightened or replaced using fresh sinnet. You begin sanding a small crack near the waterline, the shell scraper moving steadily. The elders show you how to soften resin over embers and carefully fill gaps, smoothing with palm leaves until the hull is as good as new. It's meticulous work, demanding patience and respect for the canoe's spirit. Quirky tidbit. Some voyagers carried tiny repair kits tucked in woven pouch, complete with miniature tools, and resin balls, because they believed the canoe's life was linked to its caretaker's vigilance. Losing or forgetting these kits was considered a bad omen, inviting trouble on the waves. As you work, you notice how the canoe seems to respond. The wood's grain almost appears to realign itself beneath your hands, as if thanking you for the care. You realize the bond between builder, sailor, and vessel is ongoing. A living relationship rather than a one-time creation. Historians still debate the extent to which these repair practices were standardized or varied across islands, with some suggesting that local resources and environmental factors heavily influence techniques. Yet the emphasis on maintenance and respect is universally acknowledged. By midday, the repairs are done. The canoe is ready again, stronger, perhaps even wiser from its small wounds. You run your hand along the hull, feeling the smooth surface, and smile. This vessel carries more than wood and rope. It carries resilience and legacy. As the sun climbs high, you help lash fresh sennit onto the outriggers, the fibers tightening. With the promise of future voyages, the ocean calls again, but for now, you rest beside the canoe. Its steady presence a comforting anchor in this vast, beautiful world. The air feels thick with anticipation as the sun rises higher, casting sharp shadows across the beach. Today marks a new chapter not just in your journey, but in the legacy of the canoe itself. You're about to learn the sacred art of navigation, the knowledge that turns a vessel from a simple boat into a true seafaring companion. This is where the gentle art of canoe building meets the wisdom of the stars. Waves and winds, you sit cross-legged with the elders, their faces weathered by salt and sun, eyes bright with stories. They point upward to the sky, tracing constellations. With their fingers, the Southern Cross, Orion's Belt, the Pleiades all serving as celestial guides. Your heart races as you try to commit the patterns to memory, knowing these stars will lead you across vast, open ocean. Mainstream historical fact: Polynesian navigators relied heavily on star paths for open ocean travel. Memorizing complex star maps and using the rising and setting points of stars to maintain course, combined with knowledge of ocean swells, bird flight, and cloud formations. This celestial navigation enabled incredible voyages spanning thousands of miles. You learn about the subtle dance of ocean swells, how they reflect island land masses and currents. The elders demonstrate how to read the water's surface for hints of hidden reefs or approaching weather. It's like learning to speak the ocean's secret language, skill passed down through chance and apprenticeship. Quirky tidbit: some navigators wore special headbands woven from pandanus leaves infused with fragrant oils, believing these sharpened their senses and allowed them to hear the ocean more clearly. It might sound like superstition, but you find yourself wondering if there's a bit of magic in it after all. You practice scanning the horizon, matching the stars above to the patterns on the water below. Your paddle lies idle beside you as you absorb the vast knowledge shared in quiet reverence. Historians still debate how much of this knowledge was formalized versus orally transmitted, and whether some navigation techniques were deliberately kept secret within certain families or classes. What is clear is that this wisdom transformed mere boats into vehicles of discovery, survival, and connection. As dusk falls, you lie back on the sand, gazing upward. The stars twinkle knowingly, the ocean hums softly, and the canoe rests nearby ready, waiting and ever patient. The gentle art is complete. The final dawn paints the sky with soft pastel hues as you stand once more beside your canoe. The ocean stretches endlessly before you, calm and inviting yet full of mystery. The air is thick with the scent of salt and warm earth, a gentle reminder of both where you've come from and where you're headed. Today, you prepare for your first independent voyage. The village gathers, faces bright with pride and hope, offering blessings and quiet farewells. The elders' eyes hold a mix of solemnity and encouragement. They've seen many journeys begin, but each is unique, a thread woven into the vast tapestry of Polynesian history. Your hands steady the paddle, let your heart steady in its rhythm. The canoe, your creation, your companion, seems to hum beneath you, eager and strong. Mainstream historical fact: Polynesian voyaging was often a communal event, blending practical preparations with rich rituals. Voyagers carried provisions, navigational knowledge, and the spirits of their ancestors, embarking on journeys that forged new connections across the Pacific. As you push the canoe into the shimmering surf, the familiar creak of lashings and the gentle splash of waves create a soothing symphony. You feel the outriggers, steadying presence as the canoe glides forward. Seamless dance between human skill and natural design. Quirky tidbit. Some navigators carried small talismans carved from bone or shell believed to protect against storms and guide safe passage. These tokens were treasured. It's passed down through generations like silent guardians of the sea. Historians still argue over the exact routes and techniques used by ancient Polynesian voyagers. But the evidence of their incredible feats is undeniable. Their canoes were not just vessels, they were lifelines, storytellers, and symbols of human courage and ingenuity. As the shoreline fades behind you, replaced by the vast open sea, you feel a profound connection to your ancestors, to the ocean, and to the timeless art of canoe building. The gentle rocking of the hull beneath you, the steady rhythm of your paddle, and the endless horizon ahead create a perfect harmony. You breathe deeply, embracing the unknown with quiet confidence. The journey is just beginning, and the canoe carries you not just across the water, but through time itself. The gentle art has found its voyage.